Yeah, so the three of us all co-parent together. So we're all the parents of both kids. But biologically, my son is my biological child, and my daughter is my ex-meta's biological kid. So, like, I gave birth to one child, and she gave birth to the other.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Well, welcome to episode 279. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have a fun conversation with Laura, who is a relationship coach and educator and has been exploring non-monogamy for over 15 years.
Yeah, this is a super fun conversation, and Laura has explored a lot of different types of non-monogamy, a lot of different varieties of such. And so we have a great conversation about that, around co-parenting, around consciously exploring sexuality, and so much more. So please definitely stick around. We are super excited about this conversation, and go check out all of Laura's work. You can find links on our website at normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the podcast tab or in your podcast player show notes below.
She hosts the blog and podcast Ready for Polyamory.
Didn't you already say that?
No, I didn't.
Oh. I thought you already said that. That's why I wasn't saying it.
It's all good.
Sorry, Laura. Yeah. Her blog and podcast are amazing. We were actually on her podcast not that long ago.
We were.
So maybe that's a good one to start with.
Yes. And you wanted to make a note about this episode.
Oh, there was an important note. Thank you for reminding me. Mm-hmm. Our squeaky chair. The note was around sarcasm. So for people who know me through this show, my humor tends to be a bit dry and sarcastic.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like
a lot.
Like a desert sucks the moisture. Like a KFC biscuit sucks the moisture out of your mouth. Anyway, Laura shares some of that with me, and there is a lot of sarcasm and dry humor in this conversation that maybe if you can't see us, you miss. So just keep that in mind. And I don't have any other way to describe it other than it's fun, but also subtle.
Yes.
How do you feel, Emma? Did I do all right?
You did a good disclaimer. Good disclaimer.
Yeah. And a plug for KFC. New sponsor.
Anyway, thank you again, Laura. For anyone who's a premium subscriber, we're going to jump right into her interview now. And for anyone else, we're going to stick around and have a few announcements for you. First up, a quick reminder that the premium subscription is a way to skip the announcements up front here. Don't worry, you still get important dates in the outro. It only costs a couple bucks a year or whatever you want to pay. It supports the show, and you can sign up by going to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and scrolling down on our homepage.
Next up, we have an awesome event we're super excited about on March 30th. That is going to be called Dating Your Way with Marie Tween. Marie came on the podcast back on Focus Fridays, I don't remember which one. I should have looked that up. I think 2.5.
A Focus Fridays episode.
Yeah, should have looked that up. And about compersion. So Marie is amazing. She's a dating coach. She's an all-around badass and friend of ours. So we're going to be talking with her. Actually, she's going to be presenting about how to be clear about your intentions and communication, the best apps to use, how to craft amazing profiles, and maybe most importantly, how to make dating joyful and meaningful for you.
Yes. So we'd love for you to check out this workshop and join us. Again, it's on March 30th. You can sign up at our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, under events.
Yes, we'll see you there. All of you.
All of you. Also, coming up...
Really quick, one thing.
What?
If you're a member of our community, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you get a $10 discount off of that, bringing the cost down to just $25 for the workshop.
You do.
All right. That's all I wanted to say.
Next up in April, so coming up soon, we will be at Southwest Love Fest in Tucson, Arizona, April 14th to the 16th. We will be doing a workshop there, and we're super excited about the whole weekend. It's an amazing conference, and we're super excited. So we encourage you to go check it out. You can find links in the show notes or just Google it, and you can use the code Emma for a discount at checkout.
And it helps support the show, which is rocking.
It does.
And we'll see you there. I think we're going to party up. We know of at least about 5 or 6 people who are going to be there, and we're pretty stoked.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be great.
It's going to be off the chain. as I should never say again.
No.
Anyway, we mentioned that community earlier. A little bit of setup for us. Our community, our virtual community, our support community, it's the most amazing community on the internet, as best we can tell.
Yeah. We might be a little biased, though.
And we're super humble about it. Anyway, it's a couple bucks a month. We've got almost 300 members at this point, and they're in there all day, every day, showing up to support one another. We've got an awesome testimonial we're going to play for you next week. Emma's like, whoa, holy shit, what happened? But no, it's next week, Emma.
Yeah, I know. It's next week. We're excited about that. So we're like...
this is the preview.
I was going to say previewing it now.
Anyway, we have a men's group. We have a women's group. We have all sorts of amazing ways for you to connect with other open-minded and sometimes mostly non-monogamous people, but not always. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of everything for everyone.
Open-minded people.
So we'd love to have you check it out. We'd love to have you join us. You can head over again to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the community tab, get yourself some community action, and save yourself $10 on that dating workshop.
Yes, that's on March 30th.
That's right. Instant rebate.
Yeah, basically, essentially. Also,
I wasn't lying.
We're excited that our next virtual meet and greet is going to be April 21st. We actually just had a virtual meet and greet last week. It was amazing. We had so much fun. And we're excited about this next one. These virtual meet and greets are open to anyone. You just must be open-minded and respectful. And you can sign up on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, on the events tab.
And the last thing we could tell you to do when you're on our website is head over to the resources tab, and you'll see all sorts of amazing resources that Emma and I love and use. But one of them stands out above the rest.
You've heard it before, stdcheck.com.
And you
unless
still
this
can't,
is your first episode.
And unless Emma says it and you can't understand her because she slurs it all together, that's STD. That is stdcheck.com. There are links in the show notes as well. But this is our favorite way to get tested for STIs. And we recommend, if you're going to come to the dating workshop, you're going to beef up that profile. You're going to be out there. You're going to be swimming in it.
Go get tested for STIs.
Get it now. Get it now. Mm-hmm. Get ready. It's going to be amazing. It's fast, it's easy, it's affordable. It's $129 for a 10-panel test. When you use the links on our website, you save $10, which is amazing for you, and it helps support us financially. So thank you.
Thank you. And a final reminder, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, click on the Contact Us button, send us a voicemail, send us an email if you want to be on the podcast or if you have any feedback for us. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's go and talk to Laura.
Let's do it.
Welcome, Laura. We're so excited to talk to you today. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
We'd love for you to introduce yourself, whatever level you feel comfortable with.
So my name's Laura Boyle. I'm a relationship coach and an educator. I maintain the blog and polyamory glossary at readyforpolyamory.com. And I've been teaching classes about polyamory, kink, and mental health and the intersection of those for about 5.5 years now, mostly on a local level, but in the last year and a half on a national level.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And are you just a non-monogamy enthusiast, or do you maybe get involved yourself from time to time?
Well, I've been in non-monogamous relationships for the last 16 years. That's how I ended up teaching about any of these subjects in the first place. I think this is an uncommon enough area of interest and study that it would be a little funny to be somebody who's just like, well, it's an intellectual curiosity.
Right? I think I'm excited for the day where somebody's like, ew, gross. No, I don't do it, but I coach it, I teach it, I live it day to day, but it's not for me.
Well, I mean, Elizabeth Sheff, who has written a bunch of the books about it, isn't non-monogamous themselves.
Right.
So they do at this point, not exist in a non-monogamous relationship structure. Although I think for a time they were in non-monogamous relationship structures and just aren't currently.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
Well, it's this this fine line, right? Because you could try out non-monogamy and if you're in academia, for example, and do all this research and have it be a very big part of your life, but then decide, oh, maybe this isn't for me personally, but oh, this is so interesting. I want to keep writing books and researching and everything. And so there's that too, I think.
Yeah. I was being cheeky, to be honest. So take us back 16 years or longer ago. What brought non-monogamy into your life?
a nice boy asked me on a date. Well, so in a more serious sense, it kind of looked like a meet cute from a movie in that I was walking down the halls at McGill University with a really big bundle of books in my arms, and I got bumped into in the hallway by this very nice chemistry student who then helped me pick up all my books and was like, "Do you want to go get coffee sometime?" And I said, "Yeah." And then while we were out for coffee, he was like, "So have you ever heard of polyamory?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." And he was like, "Have you heard of open relationships?" And being a like Dan Savage listening, very progressive 19-year-old, I was like, "Of course I have." And from there, we proceeded to start dating. And then I learned a lot of things about a lot of things. And polyamory was one of the terms that I kind of learned at that time. And 16 years ago, there were a lot less sort of resources and books and things like that about it. So like I did read The Ethical Slut back then, but even then, like nobody thought of that as like a book about polyamory. It was about open relationships and about reclaiming terms and about kind of learning what you wanted out of relationships and being open and being honest with people about what you wanted. But the idea of like polyamory as a movement wasn't really a thing. And nobody was like making it a big political thing in the way that some people are now.
Sure. Sure.
So there was a lot of that being very different.
Yeah. Before you had this run-in officially with somebody else about it, had it ever cropped up in your life? It sounds like you were a Dan Savage follower. You weren't closed off to the idea of things being a little bit outside of the norm, but it sounds like polyamory wasn't necessarily in your lexicon at that point.
Well, right. I was a liberal college student going to school in Montreal. I like thought I was very worldly. I read a lot of things. I listened to a lot of podcasts. I like thought I was really cool, right? This was just as podcasts were becoming a thing, right? I had a literal iPod. This is what, 2006, 2007?
Yep.
So I'm like walking around with my literal iPod that I'm downloading my stuff to from my computer every weekend.
Yes.
Before I then walk around for the week to listen to my things on my way to and from class. And like, so I thought I was really cool, being very forward thinking. And one of my majors, I did a double major in English and what was then called sexual diversity studies, although now it's been sort of bundled into a like multiple major women's studies, queer studies, like lump sum thing that McGill does. That was all about like looking at gender and sexuality and reading a lot of interesting feminist, and not just feminist, but also alternate perspective kind of works about how and why we might want to queer the way we were looking at the world. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting to me to try to be in a relationship that worked a little differently. And when that particular relationship didn't work out, it sort of didn't occur to me that I might want to be in relationships that worked normally after that.
Right. So did you give it a try with the coffee date guy?
Yeah. So we were together for, 6 or 8 months, maybe. And he had one other partner, and they stayed together for a little longer than we did. We stayed friends. I went to his wedding like 2 years later. He's a sweet Jewish boy who like married a nice girl who he met through a matchmaker 2.5 years later. Right. So I went to their wedding and I was one of the people who like helped hold up the like arches that the bride ran through when they came in. It was a nice ceremony and everything was very traditional. And they're like a really traditional kind of like orthodoxly married, cute couple. They've got 4 kids. They're like everything, the picture of how you do things traditionally at this point, right. Which is really funny to me as he was somebody who like introduced me to polyamory, was really involved in my kink journey. Like, like
who is this person?
Yeah.
Right. I was just like, wow, man, you did everything your parents really wanted you to be here. I hope the rest of your life is going really smoothly, like under the surface, and I'm not going to ask.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it is not my business. I will not ask.
Yeah, you have to hope it's not a facade where he's building up resentment or sadness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He may have just made the choice and like, this is what
Well, or they may be doing all of those things where it is not my business.
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Nobody will know. So did you at that time, were you also exploring other relationships?
Yeah, although in a very like, it was casual and it was college and everybody, this is 2006, 2007. Everyone was writing sensationalist articles about how none of us were ever going to get into relationships and hookup culture was going to destroy America. Right? Yeah. So even though I was in Canada, it was sort of fundamentally the same thing happening. And as someone who went to school in Canada, I know that they, and I by extension, because by being there, I took on a little bit of Canadian culture. I lived in Canada for 7 years, both at and after going to McGill. Hated the like, American culture just bleeds into Canadian culture. No, it is different, but some of it's the same. And the like giant cultural concern of like, hookup culture is going to destroy the family it's the same thing, right? Everyone was very worried that if you're not just going to college to like get an MRS, you're never going to get married and everything's going to be ruined.
Yeah.
And some of that is true. Like, a lot of my friends didn't get married right away. I did, but I got divorced. Like,
yeah. Well, so where did the journey take you after that?
Well, so I had a lot of relationships, many of them concurrently.
In college. Right.
In and right after, right? And I got married to one of them, who I was with for 6 years. And then we got divorced like a year later. And we got married and then I got divorced a year after getting married. Because we decided that we fundamentally couldn't agree on whether or not we were going to have kids. But we couldn't agree or disagree on that before we got married. That apparently was not in the cards for us.
Yeah. Which in retrospect, probably the better time to figure that out, I would guess.
I suggest that people figure that out before they spend a giant amount of their family's money on weddings. Don't.
And then another giant amount undoing the wedding.
Just don't.
Yeah, just don't. Got it.
just figure that out.
Just figure it out. Look, I say that as if it's easy, right? Like, there is a lot of the work that I do as a relationship coach is in the format of, these are mistakes I've made. Please let me help you make different, simpler mistakes.
Like, you're still going to make mistakes, but let's not go down the path I did.
Let's make them smaller.
Yeah.
Let's make your bumps less bumpy, right? Yeah. Like, don't have to have a whole divorce about this.
Right. Were those, you said you had lots of different relationships, you had a marriage. Were those functionally monogamous, or were you still sort of tinkering with the non-monogamy, figuring out your way?
I think I was monogamous by accident for 3 months at one point. Right? Like, I wasn't, and then I've been monogamous by accident again now in my 30s for about a year at one point. Right? Those are the only periods of actual monogamy in my adulthood since then. I don't monogamy well. This is not a lifestyle that suits me. So I found that different styles of non-monogamy worked better for me than others, right? So trying to do the extremely hierarchical, structured, somebody is definitely my primary kind of structure did not work super well for me. It just felt really restricted and really restrained and didn't sit. It didn't sit well because it didn't make any sense to me. For some people, that feels like it makes all the sense in the world, and that structure feels really safe, and it feels like it makes the most sense. For me, it just felt like it didn't make sense in the same way that monogamy didn't make sense, right? And so it just felt like an extension of the same norms that I was rejecting anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What did, maybe as that progressed for you, as you were figuring that out, what did it like functionally look like?
What maybe didn't work?
Yeah.
I mean, it mostly looked like, in the relationships that lasted the longest, rules sort of falling aside and me not imposing them newly in the newer relationships, right? So it would be like the first couple of relationships I had, me having like lists of things that felt like needs, and those turning into, oh, well, these are kind of wants or nice to haves. And then it becoming, oh, these aren't even really nice to haves, but I guess if you feel that way, we can do them. And then that turning into, I'd really rather not, but I guess if you need that, we can figure that out. Right? And over time, that being the tone of things moving forward. And that's not to say that I ever like belittled partners or outright said that in that tone of voice, but the feeling of that being how I approached conversations about very strict rules versus having conversations about guidelines, right? About sort of anything except underlying kind of safety barriers, things like that, right? Because that's one area where like making agreements made sense to me.
Yeah.
And pretty much everything else, making agreements just felt like setting people up for failure. Right? Pretty much anything beyond like, okay, let's use some common sense. Don't date my sister. Like, let's not be assholes here.
Unless that's your kink, and then now we're in a whole different realm, right?
Right, but even if that's your kink, we can probably just have you, like, role play that with someone else who isn't, so that you're not screwing with my feelings about it.
Fair
right?
enough.
Like, you don't have to be an actual asshole, because if the thing that is getting you off is that you're hurting my feelings, I don't really want to play with you in the first place.
Sure. I was meaning unless that was your kink. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a whole different thing. If me having my feelings hurt is the thing, that's a whole separate.
Sure. For sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for expanding on it. You go.
Well, I was just curious. So you had ended the marriage, and then what has the trajectory looked like for you since then?
So, my son's father and I got together pretty much as my marriage was ending. Like, we'd been together a little while before that, but not in a, like, committed or substantial way. And then my son was born in the year following. And then my son's dad was with my ex-meta, my co-parent. And so then they had my daughter 2 years later. And so that was our little family, or is our little family. But then me and my ex, my son's dad, broke up 4 years ago. And so we still co-parent, but we don't live together anymore. And I've been with my partner, Ken, for 7 years now. So that's since just before my daughter was born. I don't know. I've been like dating around, but a bunch of relationships have sort of started and not really lasted. And I've been with my girlfriend since last fall.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who are like poly and local.
Yeah, so it sounds like where you're at right now is you have like the relationship with your son's dad and your ex-meta and like that co-parenting dynamic. You have your 7-year relationship, and then you have a girlfriend, you said, from a few months, like from last fall, maybe 5 months ago or so, and then you have a bunch of friends and community in the poly scene, and just open to other things as they come along.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Can we dissect the co-parenting, I don't want to say trio?
Yeah, we were a V, like, who co-parented for the years that we all lived together.
Yeah, and so because I think that's a really important dynamic. I think polyamory parenting how that all gets managed. And we happen to know that's a bit of a passion of yours as well. And so we'd love to dig into it. But could you explain just one more time what the actual structure was? Because I think you referred to, it sounded like the other two people had a child and you referred to her as your daughter. And
so the three of us all co-parent together. So we're all the parents of both kids.
Okay.
But biologically, my son is my biological child and my daughter is my ex-meta's biological kid.
Okay.
So like I gave birth to one child and she gave birth to the other.
Sure.
So for like clarity, I try to indicate what the difference is. Where we live in Connecticut, there is a law that got recently passed that says that you can claim parentage of a kid who you've been raising, of a kid who isn't biologically your kid who you've been raising for long enough, so long as you have the like written approval of their biological parents. So we've been looking with the help of our legal representatives at changing our paperwork to say that we're all the legal parents of all the kids. But we haven't formally finished doing that yet. But Connecticut is one of 37 states where you can get some level of legal rights over kids who aren't biologically yours if you've been what's called psychologically parenting them. So it's interesting that that's been expanding all across the country, including in some states that you'd consider to be conservative. The reason it's expanding in some of those conservative states is that they're trying to limit adoption rights by limiting the circumstances in which you can do it. But the ways they're doing it are creating loopholes in some cases that can be used. So in general, I would advise people to, if they're worried about or looking to kind of cover their legal situation, talk to a local family attorney about it. Because often there are more openings than you think there are.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so just to clarify too, like thank you for explaining all of that. But it sounds like for the first handful of years in that dynamic, you all three lived together with the kids and co-parented, and then 4 years ago when you split from your in a V dynamic. So your ex-partner was the hinge there with both of you.
Right. And we had 2 master bedrooms, so the adults were all in the 2 masters, and Brian would bounce back and forth between the 2 of us. And then the kids had their rooms too. And it was really nice. It just, when we broke up, it was a little bit challenging to keep living in a house with my ex and co-parenting. We managed it for a little more than a year. But when I had sort of everything in a row to move out, I eventually did. And the kids were pretty good at handling the dynamic of switching to having 2 homes. And because we gave them kind of the longer lead in of, things changing within the house and then things changing of me moving out, I think it helped them with that transition.
Yeah, it's important. Thank you for expanding on that. And I kind of want to ask a question as a skeptic, but I'm not. So it is not a
You're
doubtful.
Not the skeptic.
I'm not the skeptic, but I think the question is just how? How do you co-parent with 2 people who also have a child between them? And then you can keep that going after the romantic relationship is no longer a piece, because I think this is so far against the monogamous mindset. It's like, well, right, we're going to get a divorce and we're going to split this family and we're going to fight over custody and it's going to be this big ugly thing. And you are still co-parenting with 2 other people, which is mind-blowing to begin with for most people.
I mean, honestly, essentially, no differently than you do when you split up and then somebody remarries.
Sure.
Honestly, the school and a bunch of the other parents and stuff got a lot chiller about it when we lived in 2 houses.
Wow. Makes sense, I guess.
Like, it looks a lot more like a setup they understand.
Yeah, it's more culturally
it's
understandable, maybe.
Yeah.
How were the logistics? Like, what were the logistics of 3 of you raising 2 children in under one roof? And I guess maybe even to expand it to multiple roofs. How did that work?
I mean, pretty easily. With everybody in one house, it was just a lot simpler to plan things like, oh, people can have date night because the third person can take bedtime, right? Or it's easier for people to have a night off where both moms can go and one of them can go have a girls' night with her friends and the other one can go see her sister to do whatever because dad will take bedtime, right? Like those sorts of things.
And dad's not dating the sister at this point still. Important to note.
Look,
that never happened.
Sometimes we have to dispel stereotypes because there's always somebody on the internet who's like, wait, you can date anybody? Does that mean? I can't with those people.
Yeah, side tangent.
All right. I couldn't resist. Thank you for indulging.
But it just... So it's one of those things where some things are easier because in that way you can get almost anything done if one person is like doing the laundry and the second one is taking care of bedtime and the third one is, cleaning the kitchen or whatever. And that's easier. And sometimes it's harder because do you know how much noise an extra set of adults doing something is?
Yeah.
Do you know how incredibly much noise an adult distracting a toddler while you're trying to put a baby down is?
Yeah.
It's exactly the same problem as when there are two, except sometimes worse, because sometimes it's two adults making the extra funny noise, and one of them will inevitably have a different parenting style than you, right? So just like there are little conflicts of you have different upbringings and different parenting styles, it's amplified by there being three of you, right? Yeah. So there are little conflicts that are made bigger. It is harder to make sure that all of you are on the same page. It is more important to do things like getting into therapy, because having a neutral party to sort of go over the places where you have disagreements, or the places where it's not even really a disagreement, it's just you were brought up a little differently, and so you don't know where a disagreement is going to come from. And then you hit one, and one of the three of you is triggered by it and doesn't realize that's what's happening, and suddenly you're in a fight and you don't know where the fight came from.
Good thing that's never happened to us. That must just be for people with kids. Understood.
Right? So it's the things that happen to everybody, but there's more little landmines for it.
Yeah. Totally get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. So it's in some ways, it's so much easier to have that third person. In other ways, it's just not. It is another layer of complexity.
Right. A lot of the logistics are easier, and then a lot of things are more complex because there are more big decisions to be made and there are more voices in them.
Yeah. You referenced the misunderstandings or some pushback from schools and community a little bit. What has been your experience there with trying to navigate that? So
most people don't care. Or if they care, they keep their mouth shut, because I live in New England where we believe in being frosty, polite, and not saying a single word unless somebody has blown a tire out on their car, in which case you curse them out and help. But we're mean, except we're kind, right? This is what happens here. But people are passive aggressive, right? So you get the mom who's super weird at soccer and just acts kind of rude, or the person who won't invite your kid over when they invite other kids in the class over just because they're weird about you. Or you get the school administrator who kind of acts sideways about you, and you can't prove that it's about that, but you don't have anything else to blame it on. And
so it's microaggressions.
Yeah. Just all the little things, right? And then you finally get one comment where you can go, oh, it's about that. And it adds all the previous things up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's shitty.
How does I guess, how do you navigate that with your kids? Because I would imagine that they might and do witness some of that.
Well, so little kids, you just make it perfectly normal for them as much as possible. And most of the time, the kids are the ones who are like making it so blasé and normal that anyone who is nice doesn't do anything shitty.
Yeah.
Right? Anyone who is nice is just on your side already. And the people who aren't are suddenly ashamed of themselves.
Yes.
Because this 3-year-old has just schooled them. Right?
Yeah.
There's something to being radically, bluntly honest and not having a filter.
Right. And kids completely do that all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Without thinking about it.
It's good.
Yeah.
I love that. One of the things you said earlier that I can't let go was, and there's the flip side to this coin that we'll come to, but it was, you try to help people not make all of the huge mistakes you did or make them smaller. Mm-hmm. What are some of the places where you feel that you had, let's call them big learning opportunities rather than mistakes? Where were your biggest learning opportunities over the past few years, Laura?
Well, so I am one of those people who, one of my worst character flaws is realizing that I have made a mistake and avoiding talking about it with people. Right? So being polyamorous gives you the opportunity to avoid talking about something with multiple people at once. I don't know if any of you have had this opportunity.
I'm an out loud processor, so my problem is actually that I have too many people to talk to about things. But yes.
So I can relate to what you're saying though.
Right, so you have that moment and you're like, oh no, I'm going to have this conversation with 3 people.
Yeah, not just once.
Right, and you go hide for like a week. And at the end of the week, the conversation is like 4 times bigger.
Yeah.
And you realize that actually now you've compounded this problem. And actually now the problem is worse. And one of the people is actually mad when before no one would have been mad.
Yeah.
And so you put it off like one more day because that person's going to be actually mad. But then they've gone and talked to someone else. And now 2 of the 3 people are mad.
And you still haven't confronted it.
You haven't confronted it yet, right? So I once put something off long enough that not only was everyone mad, but because also I'm ADHD, right? So when I put things off like to win awards at a competitive level.
Yes.
Right. So I also forgot that I had like some paperwork sitting in a drawer, managed to get a speeding ticket involved that I hadn't paid, didn't tell anyone about the speeding ticket, owed money, didn't tell anyone about the money for the speeding ticket. Everyone was mad at me. They found the thing in my drawer. So everyone's mad at me because they found the thing in my drawer and are waiting for me to come tell them about it. So I walk in the door. All 3 of them are sitting on the couch. It has now been 9 days. It was discovered on day 7.
It's like it's been 9 days for you that you could have brought this up. 9 days
for me. They only know it's been 2 days. That's enough.
Yeah.
I just imagine this moment where you like opened the door and then you just back out of the door, close the door, get in the car. Like, that looks intense in there. I think I'm going to avoid that for another 9 days or so.
It's just a council sitting there waiting for me. And so I walk in, I have the actual conversation. The actual conversation is fine. They're just like, come on, it's going to take you 5 minutes to fix this. Is the problem that you haven't paid this ticket because you don't have enough money to pay this ticket today and you need to wait until payday? Because if so, we will lend you the money to pay this ticket. Like, no, I actually have it. I was putting it off and then I forgot it was still in the drawer and now I'm ashamed of doing it. So I didn't want to do it from the joint account because, oh, that's fine. Just go do the thing. Like, it was a 5-minute conversation.
Yeah.
But then everybody was good. Yeah, go do it.
It's fine.
It's fine. Right? And that wasn't a polyamory problem, but it was a like communication problem. that then was made bigger by the fact that I didn't want to tell 3 people at once.
Yeah.
Right?
And you couldn't only tell one because...
And I couldn't only tell one because, like, it's not that I, like, strictly practice kitchen table polyamory, but if my partners are compatible with one another, they talk to each other. Right? Like, I mostly align with relationship anarchy in terms of how I practice, but functionally that means that I land in a sort of garden party place, right? People talk or don't according to their own choices. And so at that time, it meant like everybody talked to each other. Okay, so the council is there waiting for me. So like a giant teachable moment of like, just tell somebody, even if it means they're going to like play a game of telephone on you. Because it'll be easier.
Get it out there.
Get it out there. Get it out to someone who will help you get over yourself.
Yeah.
Because your own sense of carrying around guilt and shame will hang you faster than getting something done.
Yeah.
Right? And like, also over time, I've mostly gotten over my overriding sense of guilt and shame. Like, I know, it's wild. The person who teaches about relationships and about like sexuality has a sense of guilt and shame. Who would have thought? But like, I do. It's a little bit aggravated because of Catholicism, right? Like, who would have thought the northeastern U.S. Catholicism?
We have to play neutral here, so we're taking your word for it.
It's the 3rd most Italian town in the U.S. I'll wait and let people look it up. Actually, I think part of New Jersey has us beat this year, but
yeah. So the teachable moment there was just
the teachable moment there is just that you need to actually communicate.
Yeah,
and like that letting shame beat you out of communication is not helpful.
Yeah,
like
also not easy.
It's also not easy. None of it, and I would say it gets easier. But I don't know that it does, right? Like, I think to some extent you get over either your sense of shame or how hard communication is with a given partner, but not in a broader sense with all partners, because every new partner builds their own new communication barriers, right? We have different issues with every new partner. Some of them are the same, because we bring our own same issues to the table, but how they interact with each person is different.
And I would even maybe argue anecdotally that we tend to seek out people with similar, who are similar to one another, or maybe that's...
I mean, there's some of that, right? Like,
yeah,
that's what attachment
strictly
theory says,
right.
That we're looking for people who sort of fill our attachment wounds in similar ways.
Right. And of course, it's not a strict science, but just I think it's easy to see, like, I have some similar patterns across the board, and then you can start to draw some parallels and say, well, that makes sense. These people are somewhat similar, and I'm the same in both, so I'm, or similar in both. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And the other, I just wanted to say, like, the other kind of teachable moment you already touched on earlier was around having conversations about having kids before you get married.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a big one. And like, also having your big conversations about safer sex practices and having them be fluid. And I don't mean in the sense of like fluid bonded. I mean in the sense of leaving room for them to change.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because as you
ongoing conversation.
Right. Because as relationships change, so do your needs in them.
And maybe I'll add some frosting, sprinkles on top of that of don't have them in the moment when you're about to have sex.
Absolutely.
Because that's a pretty tough time to try to navigate that. It's a high stakes moment.
And in general, don't have them when you're like desperate about the idea of changing your status with someone, right?
Sure.
So like, don't go to your partner on my next date with so-and-so. I really don't want to use barriers with them ever again, right? Me and so-and-so are thinking of generally in the future using barriers less.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? With not a giant emotional attachment to the idea of what the outcome is in the short term is a much better way to approach that.
Yeah. And by the way, that date is in an hour. So if you could get me that answer pretty quick, that'd be helpful.
Right.
Yeah. Timing of conversations can be critical. We've definitely learned that the hard way.
Yeah. Well, then can we flip that coin over and ask what are the things that keep you coming back? You've said like I got a taste of the sort of non-normative relationship style, and you never had a taste to go back. What are the things that keep you coming back, even though it's hard, even though there's some pain and big learning experiences? What keeps you coming back to the non-monogamy pool?
It's kind of silly that I don't have an answer to this, given that I teach about non-monogamy all the time. It's more that monogamy doesn't make any more sense to me than non-monogamy does. Like, for me, monogamy is a series of rules that limits your interactions that doesn't make any sense to me, right? Like, I can see a world in which I potentially end up like monogamous by a sort of non-classic definition. Like, maybe I end up only sexual with one partner or something like that over time, but not in a sort of strict, I control who your friends are kind of toxic monogamy way. So non-monogamy for me is about freedom and about respecting the autonomy of my partners and about broadening the way I look at relationships. So it's all about this idea that we can redefine how we relate to one another, right? And that we can individually define these things within our relationships rather than looking at broad social structures of like what a boyfriend is, what a girlfriend is, what a husband or a wife are in terms of how we relate.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it's just that the freedom to blaze your own path and not be so boxed into labels and norms. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I know the answer here, but do you see anything around that changing for you moving forward? Like your relationship structure or desires, wants?
I mean, I could see a lot changing about my relationship structure in terms of like, could I get into other relationships and then the structure I'm in looks substantially different? Sure. I was in what looked like a really strict kind of hierarchical relationship structure less than 10 years ago, right? And 15 years ago, I was relatively new to this and in all casual relationships that looked like pretty much any other college kid who probably wouldn't have named themselves as non-monogamous. They would have gone, I'm just dating around, right? Like the difference between dating around and being non-monogamous when you're in college is just, do you see the end goal as you end up with one person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask about was you had mentioned that you have a girlfriend the last 5-6 months, however long. And I'm curious, is that new for you? Have you dated people of the same sex or before, or what is your experience there, and what
exploring gender or exploring sexuality?
Yeah, exploring your sexuality, and how is that experience and process journey been for you? Journey, that's the word I was looking for.
So it ended up in a lot of experiences where there had been like some sexual exploration or like kink exploration, but not a lot of like, let's go on dates and figure out romantically what's going on here with other women really throughout my whole non-monogamous journey. But this was sort of the first time where anybody was like, oh, let's go on cute dates. Let's actually figure out if we want to see each other. as opposed to like, let's play a couple times at parties. And so that's been a nice change of pace for me. And it's only in the last like year or two that I've felt like it's kind of valid for me to apply the term bisexual to myself, partly because of that, like that little bit of erasure that applies to bi and pan people, where if you're not doing it enough, or if you're not with enough people of your own gender in a short enough amount of time, or in a romantic enough way, or for a long enough period of time relative to the amount that you're with people of other genders, right? Like, then you're not valid. So, I don't know. Some of it was like self-erasure, and some of it was a little bit of cultural messaging that I had internalized.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of nice to figure out how this relationship works and get to do that a little more.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's so common. The idea that I don't know why my brain loves the tennis analogies, but the idea that like, are you a tennis player, or do you occasionally play tennis? And you can't claim to be a tennis player unless you play enough tennis that it pushes you over some imaginary threshold. Mm-hmm. And I think, I can change the analogy.
Okay.
To running. This is a fun story, and I will share this quickly. We met. This is where I'm judging people. We met these people many years ago, and the woman was, if you were to like, just very,
I just remember
just very very fit. It looks like potentially runs like Iron Man's, like very very competitive fitness level, right? And I was like, well, I was just curious, like, well, what do you do to like stay in such great shape? Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, I'm a runner. And I was like, oh, amazing. Like how much do you run? I think I ran 3 miles last week. And I was like, my brain was like, no, you ran. You're not a runner. Like, runners run like 3 miles to warm up, and then they run a marathon, and then they do a cool down, and then they do it the next day. And that's like obviously not true. But that was sort of like, my brain was like, hold on a minute. You ran once last week, and now you're a runner. And so I don't know, just a hilarious anecdote, but I think it plays in here. Like, you had sex with a woman, that doesn't make you bisexual until you do it. You got to hit a quota, whatever that quota is. And I think that just kind of,
or maybe you just know,
or you just know, right? But it's hard that you land in a spot of that, of like, what am I? What can I claim?
Right. And it's that thing where, if in theory the only benchmark you have to cross is any attraction, then mm-hmm. okay, I'm so far past the benchmark, right?
Right.
But if the benchmark is, well, everybody feels some attraction, so actually it's this much sex, or mm-hmm. actually it's this much relationship.
Yep.
Right? Like, where is the benchmark?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think, to call myself out, that person should identify as a runner if they feel like they're a runner. And if you feel like you're bisexual, then like, who's to tell you you're not? Right.
It's the whole thing of a label is a starting point for a conversation.
Well, right. And I feel like that sense has changed a lot, again, over the last 15, 16 years. Mm-hmm. Because 15, 16 years ago, the conversation wasn't the label is a starting point for a conversation. It was a much stricter, like, what do you mean?
Yeah. Like, this label fits you in this box.
Right. And also, people are still kind of shitty about labels, but people were even shittier about labels a decade and a half ago than they are now.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Go for it.
No. I refuse.
I was going to switch the subject unless you...
Do it.
Okay. I wanted to make sure to give you a chance to plug like everything that all the work that you do too, because we love hearing about your story and all of the things you've shared, but we also know you have a lot of important and amazing work out there. And we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to talk about that.
And I have a couple follow-up questions post plugging your work. So anybody listening, don't go anywhere. Carry on.
Well, so you can find my work for free online at readyforpolyamory.com is the blog. I also have my podcast, which is the Ready for Polyamory podcast, on all the different podcast platforms that you have available. You can see me on Instagram and TikTok at Ready for Polyamory. And I have classes coming up through Wicked Grounds every month through May. So if you go to their website, you can then find the ticketing links.
And those are virtual.
Those are virtual, and it's also on my website under the events page. So if you've gone to my website, you will then find it. You can also find links to any of my other digital classes there. The ones that aren't digital, I tend to not throw up there, mostly because they tend to be for private groups. And I do relationship coaching for individuals and dyads and triads. So if you're interested, folks, you can drop your information in my contact form, and I'll get back to you to figure out if we're a fit or not. If you are, I tend to do 3 and 6 month contracts for relationship coaching.
Love it.
Wonderful.
And what will people find at readyforpolyamory.com?
So the blog covers a lot of information from like sort of basic background on polyamory, on different terms, to kind of detailed deep dives on very specific subtopics. Like one of the most visited sets is a look at the spectrum of different structures of polycules, from like really entangled kitchen table units all the way up to strict parallel, and breaking down what those can look like. And then another of our most visited things is actually a humor page of what it would look like if all of the polyamorous stereotypes were at a meetup together.
I love it.
Be a hell of a meetup.
Yeah, right?
I love it. Do you have a few minutes for a couple extra questions?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So one of them that we love to ask is around coming at things from maybe a lighter standpoint of bloopers. They don't have to be sexual. They could be relational. You kind of touched on one with your council meeting, which I loved. But are there other maybe things that have happened along the way that are humorous that sort of point out we don't need to take ourselves so seriously. We're going to all screw it up, and we can maybe laugh about it in retrospect or maybe in the moment and carry on with life.
I'm sure I've had about 100. I'm trying to think of a specific one.
No worries. Take your time.
Or one that's got like a punchline. So my metas own a Ren fair, and we all work different jobs at the Ren fair over the summer.
Okay.
And I tend bar. That is what I do. I throw on, the tightest corset possible and try to get people to give tips and do the whole shenanigans. And the one downside to your entire polycule working at a Ren fair in the summer, I don't know if it's a downside, but it's kind of a downside, is that when people don't realize that you're all connected, they do occasionally walk into the bar and start talking shit about the wrong people in front of you.
Uh-huh.
And then you get to dramatically refuse service.
Yes. Because in that moment, you can do that.
Don't mess with my squad.
Right. And then your manager gets concerned. And then you have to explain why. And then they go, you can't just be a mean girl.
But they were mean first.
Right. But yeah. So,
an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind, Emma.
I know. So I'm not saying it's a solid strategy.
Apparently, we can't be vengeful when the polycule are proacts at the Ren Fair and people are being rude.
I think you just got to be more covert about it. That's all.
Look, I'm not actually mean. I'm from New England. I don't spit in people's drinks. I just throw them in the grass and don't serve them.
Fill them half full. Oh, sorry. That's as full as I could get.
I'm a pessimist. Here you go.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Magic 8-ball. Your chances aren't good.
Yeah. Ask again later. I had a 2-part final question, unless Emma has more questions.
Not right now.
So the final question is it a valid strategy to meet people by going to college campuses and running into them and knocking their books out of their hand and asking them on dates? You're shaking your head no.
I mean, I guess it is if you're in a movie or it's 2006.
Okay.
Right.
So not
Right.
valid in 2023 if you're
Right,
35.
Right. No, if you're 35, it's never valid. You should not be meeting people in college.
Fair. This was a lead into the next question, which was my actual question. How do you meet people?
Do we have a sponsor?
We do not.
Nope.
Okay. I ask only because this is the sort of thing that a dating app would sponsor. In all seriousness, meeting people at local polyamory meetups and making friends first is probably your best bet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like having actual genuine platonic connections with people and then being like, well, we're pretty friendly and I'd like to get to know you better. Why don't we see if there's chemistry?
Mm-hmm.
Is probably your real best bet.
And that's why we don't have a dating app sponsor.
Right. But beyond that, dating apps do work some of the time.
Mm-hmm.
They work better if you're white, if you're reasonably affluent, if you're a good typist, if you put up reasonably attractive pictures, and if you spend too much time paying attention to them. If you're not able to do all those things for any reason, I know that some of those are arbitrary things or things that are hard to control, right? But if you can't do all of those things, they're not going to work as well for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good point.
And I love it's very similar to the advice we often give people. Go out in the world and find activities you love doing. You will find, if you start doing those activities, you will find other people who love those activities, and you will magically meet people who love the same activities as you do.
Yes, and if you have more patience than me for converting the monogamous to non-monogamy, feel free to just do that through your activities.
Sure.
I have very, very little patience, like this close to zero, for doing so at this point. So I tend to stick with meetups and other non-monogamous people, right? Mm-hmm. But if I still had any patience left in my body for almost anything, I would maybe just meet people at my hobbies. Also, if my hobbies weren't just knitting.
Yeah.
I guess that is hobby dependent. But I do think that it is a valid, it's such great advice, especially if, and again, we're going to go paint with some stereotypes here, but this is a problem that we often hear from men where they say, I'm on the apps. I've been on the apps for months. I have one match. It's like, great. Go meet people in person. Yeah. Talk to them as a human. You will have many, many, many more matches. They won't happen in the first night. They probably won't happen in the second night. But month 3, 4, 5, you start to become a trusted entity in your community. And then you actually have people helping you. Oh, well, have you met John? John's amazing. You should go on a date with John.
Yep.
Now your dating app is your community that's repping for you, wingmanning for you. And I think it's a little bit of a longer game strategy, but it's really not any longer than sitting on a dating app for 7 months with one match.
Right. Become a regular for 6 months at a local event.
Yep.
Yeah. And you'll start to meet a lot of people. Yeah. Anything else?
I just want to clear the air that I do not troll college campuses knocking the books out of co-ed's hands, hoping to strike up a coffee date. So that is not my MO in any way, shape, or form. That's all. I just needed to throw that out there.
Thank you, Laura, for everything that you shared today and for all of the just outstanding work that you put out there as well. We're excited to spread the word and hopefully send more people your way. So yeah, thank you again.
Thank you guys for having me.
And we're back. Thank you so much, Laura, for coming on and sharing your story with us. We had so much fun talking. And a quick reminder, go check out Laura's work. Links on our website under the podcast show notes.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura, for the work you do, for coming on, for sharing, and for having us on your podcast.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
A few quick reminders. We have a workshop coming up around dating your way. That's on March 30th. More information on our website under the events tab. We are going to be at Southwest Love Fest, April 14th through the 16th in Tucson, Arizona. We'd love to have you join us there. And we have our next virtual meet and greet on April 21st. So you can also sign up for that on our website under the events tab.
We're everywhere.
We are everywhere. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. You should be everywhere with us. We'd love to have you there.
Come and join us, please.
Next week, we have a super awesome interview. I believe I actually described this one to somebody as a bundle of joy just bursting at the seams. Yeah?
Yeah.
How'd I do?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So we are talking with Janiquil, who is from Singapore, and this is an amazingly fun, beautiful conversation, and we can't wait to bring it to you in just 1 week.
Yes.
And until then, take care of yourselves, stay dry, stay warm, stay cool. Whatever you need to do to stay your best, you do that.
Go sign up for all the stuff on our website.
And
too.
get tested for STIs.
Why not? Throw it in there.
Just do it every week.
I think that's it. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.